Hello students, sorry about that glitch which forced me to stop rather abruptly, but nonetheless we were at a reasonably logical stopping point as well. So let me quickly recap. So we had discussed in the last module, part 1, that we have generalized, or we can generalize numbers to include square root of negative numbers. Those are called complex numbers, so generally written as x plus iy. X is the real part and y is the imaginary part, and I is the unit imaginary number, which is square root of -1. So this implies immediately that I squared is -1 and I cubed is minus I to the 4 is plus 1, and so on. Okay, this is something that you can verify yourself, right? Alright, so now what I was going to say at the very end of the last module was that you can write, as I told you, that mod z, the amplitude or modulus of a complex number, is x squared plus y squared to the half, and theta is, as I told you, it's almost tan inverse of y upon x. The reason why I put the almost is because you have to look at the quadrant in which this number is actually present. Alright, so now I also mentioned that because theta, you can always add 2n pi to theta and still you get where n is 0, 1, 2 and so on. You still go back to the same point in the complex plane. So theta can be multiplied by added. I mean, theta, you can add multiples of integral multiples of 2 pi and still get the same point. So you can have multiple values of argument, all representing the same point. But the argument for n is equal to 0 is called the principal angle of the complex number. Principal angle of the complex number z. Okay. Alright. So now there is one very important point of regarding representing complex numbers, and that relates to, suppose I have the complex plane as usual, right? Now I have a number which I represent like here from the origin. Alright, so this is z, okay, and this is x, and this is y, and this is theta. From elementary trigonometry, you know that x is r cosine theta and y is r sine theta, right? So if I have z as x plus iy, then I can immediately write this as r times cos theta plus I sine theta. Okay. Now we know Taylor series of cosine theta. Cosine theta is nothing but 1 plus theta squared by 2 factorial plus theta to the 4 by 4 factorial and so on. I'm sorry, it should be a minus here. Minus and so on. And sine theta is nothing but theta minus theta cube by 3 factorial plus theta to the 5 by 5 factorial minus so on, right? So if I were to take e, you know what is the Taylor expansion of e to the x? It is 1 plus x squared by 2 factorial, where x is a real number. If I were to, instead of x, I put I theta and use the same Taylor expansion, I'll get 1 plus I theta minus theta squared by 2 factorial. Okay. Now the reason why you have minus instead of plus x squared is because you have I theta the whole squared by 2 factorial, which is I squared theta squared by 2 factorial, but I squared is minus 1. So this is the reason why you have this, right? Here minus, and then you have minus I theta cube by 3 factorial, now plus theta to the 4 by 4 factorial, and so on, right? So if you were to just look at terms, so let me collect terms in a specific way, right? I'm going to collect terms in a specific way. Suppose I collect all the terms that are odd numbered here, this, and so on. You will find that they all add up to this. Okay, now if I collect all these numbers, I theta minus I theta cube by 3 and so on, I'll get I times sine theta. Basically you will get this multiplied by I. So all I'm trying to say is that you can write, we had z is equal to r times cosine theta plus I sine theta, but upon Taylor expansion of these two individually and comparing with the Taylor expansion of e to the I theta, we found that this is nothing but the same as e to the I theta. So z can be represented as, this implies z can be represented as r e to the I theta. This is a very, very important way of representing a complex number, and this is called the polar form of a complex number, because you are now, instead of, see, previously you had z as a pair of numbers x, y in the Cartesian plane. Now the same z is now represented in terms of the polar coordinates r and theta, so therefore this is called the polar form. So e to the I theta is cos theta plus I sine theta, is a very important and fundamental formula in complex numbers. This is probably called the de Moivre's theorem or something like that. Okay. E to the I theta is cos theta plus I sine theta, is something that's extremely fundamental. Okay, so now let's see a couple of examples wherein we'll try to write a complex number. Let me take a new sheet. From, let's say you have a complex number z is 1 plus I root 3. Okay, so what is its amplitude or modulus? It is square root of 1 squared plus root 3 squared, which is 3. So this is 2. Now theta is tan inverse of root 3 by 1, but the point is in the first quadrant. Therefore theta should be 60 degrees or pi by 3 radians. Okay, so z, instead of writing it as 1 plus I root 3, I want to write it as r e to the I theta. Now that I know r, which is 2, and then e to the I theta is pi by 3. Okay, this is 2 times e to the I pi by 3 is cos pi by 3 plus I sin pi by 3. Okay, and this is 2 times cos pi by 3 is half plus I sin pi by 3 is root 3 by 2. These two will cancel and you will get simply 1 plus I root 3, which is what you originally started off with, right? So this is another very convenient way of writing a complex number in terms of, so the same z is 1 plus I root 3 can be written as 2e to the I pi by 3. Okay, why is this convenient? It is convenient because when you want to multiply two complex numbers, z1, see, if you want to add two complex numbers, it's easy to add real parts separately and imaginary parts separately. Suppose you have to multiply two complex numbers, x1 plus I y1 times x2 plus I y2. Then you'll have to expand the bracket out and then use I squared minus is equal to minus 1 and so on, and write this like this, plus I times x1 y2 plus x2 y1. Okay, this is something that you can do, right? But instead of doing this, it's much more elegant to write this as, if z1 is written as r1 e to the I theta 1 and z2 is written as r2 e to the I theta 2. Then z1 z2 is r1 r2 times e to the I theta 1 plus theta 2. That is, if you multiply two complex numbers, their absolute values or magnitudes multiply, whereas their arguments add up. So this is a very, you can generalize it to z1 times z2, z3 and so on, and you will get r1 r2 r3 times e to the I theta 1 plus theta 2 plus theta 3 and so on. Okay, this is something that's very general. You can generalize it to any number of so that is why the polar representation is very useful, because you can multiply complex numbers or divide complex numbers in a very easy manner. Let's take a new sheet. So one very important idea in complex numbers is the notion of a complex conjugate. Okay, what is a complex conjugate? All of you might be familiar, but still let's quickly represent it in a complex plane. This is a complex plane. Let's say, suppose you have a point z which is represented like this. Okay, now I can find another number. Okay, let me first mark the coordinates. This is real, this is imaginary. Suppose this is z is equal to x plus iy. Now the complex conjugate of z is denoted as z star or z bar sometimes, is simply x minus iy. That is, the sign of the imaginary part is now switched. Okay, so it's sort of like a reflection of this about the real axis, and you will get it in the imaginary axis. So z, if z is x plus iy is a given complex number, its complex conjugate, or simply the conjugate, is z star is x minus iy. Okay, so now you can immediately find what is z times z star. This is x plus iy times x minus iy. You use the formula a squared minus b squared, so this is a squared minus iy the whole squared. This is x squared minus I squared y squared, but I squared is minus 1, so minus I squared is plus 1. This is x squared plus y squared. So z times z star is x squared plus y squared, but we also know that x squared plus y squared is nothing but mod z the whole squared, because the absolute value of a complex number is, or the magnitude of the complex number is x squared plus y squared to the half, which we just saw. So if you multiply a complex number by its conjugate, you get its square of its magnitude or absolute value. Okay, this is a very important idea again. So if you in general, if you multiply complex numbers, z1 times z2, okay, z1 is mod z1 times e to the I theta 1, and z2 is mod z2 e to the I theta 2. Mod z1 is r1, mod z2 is r2, right? So this is nothing but z1 z2 is mod z1 mod z2 e to the I theta 1 plus theta 2. So what is the absolute value of mod z1 z2? It's simply mod z1 times mod z2, because the absolute value of e to the I theta 1 plus theta 2 is 1. Okay, so what is the argument of z1 plus z1 times z2? Or z1 z2 is another complex number, right? It will have a magnitude or absolute value and an argument. The argument is nothing but the sum of the two arguments. Okay, right. So you can divide complex numbers fairly easily using the polar form. So if you have z1 by z2, let's say z1 is r1 e to the I theta 1 upon r2 e to the I theta 2. This can be written as r1 by r2 times e to the I theta 1 minus theta 2. Okay, so the argument of z1 by z2 is argument of z1 minus argument of z2. What is argument of z1? Theta 1, right? And argument of z2 is theta 2. Alright, now you had e to the I theta is cos theta plus I sin theta. Now What is e to the I theta whole to the n? Okay, this is nothing but e to the I n theta is, if I raise this to the n, you will get cos theta plus I sin theta whole to the n. Okay, so but what is e to the I n theta by de Moivre's formula? This is cos n theta plus I sin n theta. This is nothing but cos theta plus I sin theta whole to the power n. Okay, so you get a very easy expression for cos theta plus I sin theta whole to the n in terms of cos n theta plus I sin n theta. So if you were to put n is equal to 3, then you will say cos 3 theta plus I sin 3 theta is cos theta plus I sin theta whole cube, and then you can expand this. This is a cube minus 3a squared, 3ab squared. So this is ab squared will have a minus because you have I squared. A cube plus 3a squared b plus 3ab squared, right? So you will have I squared, which is minus 1. So it's 3 cos theta sin squared theta. This is the real part, and then if you calculate the imaginary part, you will get 3 sin theta cos squared theta minus sin squared theta. Now you can whenever you have two expressions on the left and right side, you can equate the real part and the imaginary part separately, right? So if I let me just continue here. If I equate the real part, I'll get cos 3 theta is cos cube theta minus 3 cos theta sin squared theta, and then if I equate the imaginary parts, I get sin 3 theta is 3 sin theta cos squared theta minus sin squared theta. So you can get trigonometric identities in a very easy manner if you use these the de Moivre's formula for complex numbers, and the fact that e to the I n theta is cos n theta plus I n sin n theta. Okay, so just give me 1 minute. Okay, so now we will discuss a related topic. So how to take powers of complex numbers. So suppose you have sorry, let me take a real number. Let's say 4 cube, it's 4 into 4 into 4, right? You know how to do this. This is 64 and so on, right? But suppose I give you z is 1 plus I, and then I ask you to find z cube. Okay, the answer is very easy, because once you know how to write z in polar form, this is r e to the I theta, where r is root 2 in this case, and theta is pi by 4. You should verify why it is pi by 4 for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Then z cube becomes r e to the I theta whole cube, which is r cube e to the I times 3 theta, right? What is r cube? R cube is nothing but root 2 the whole cube. This is 2 to the 3 halves times e to the I 3 pi by 4. It's that simple. And to find out powers of complex numbers in the, now if you wish, you can of course write it in the Cartesian form by expanding out e to the I theta, right? It's easy to convert it back and forth. There will be some assignments as we go along that will help you to practice all these things, right? So another example, let's say you have let me take let's say you have 1 minus I whole to the 6. Okay, so r is again root 2, theta is 7 pi by 4. You should verify this. So z to the 6, so let's say z is 1 minus I, then r is this, theta is this. So we need z to the 6, right? That's what we want. It's nothing but 2 to the half whole to the 6 times e to the I 7 pi by 4 times 6. This is nothing but 2 to the half whole to the 6 is 2 cube, which is 8 times. Now here is very important, something very important. So this is 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6. So I times 21 pi by 2, right? Right, I can write this as e to the 8 times e to the I. I can write this as 20 plus 1 upon 2 pi. This is nothing but 8 times e to the I. 20 by 2 is 10. I times 10 pi times e to the I pi by 2. Now e to the 2 pi I is cos 2 pi plus I sine 2 pi. Now sine 2 pi is 0, cos 2 pi is 1. So e to the I 2 pi I is 1. So e to the n 2 pi I is also 1 for the same reason if n is an integer. Okay, so this part is 1. So this is 8 e to the I pi by 2. E to the I pi by 2 is cos pi by 2 plus I sine pi by 2. Cos pi by 2 is 0, sine pi by 2 is 1. So this is nothing but 8i. Okay, so you can, so the answer to let me just go a little up. So the answer to 1 minus I whole to the 6 is 8i. So you can use the polar form very easily to find out such results in complex numbers. Okay, you may require all this, for example, in process control, where you will have poles and zeros, and you may have to do the poles may lie in the complex plane. You may have to raise it to some higher power. So this is how you do it. Now roots of unity. Suppose I have a real number x squared is equal an equation x squared is equal to 1. Then you know that x must be plus or minus 1. There are two roots for real x. Okay, if x is real, there are two roots, x is plus or minus 1. Now I want the roots of x to the n equal to 1. So there must be n roots, right? What are those n roots? In order to find out these n roots, you should think of x to be so basically so x squared is 1, x is equal to plus or minus 1 to the half, that is plus or minus 1, right? So I want the nth root. So how do we do that? What are the n roots? So in order to do this, you have to think of x as a complex number. Z to the n is 1 and z is r e to the I theta. So r to the n e to the I n theta is equal to 1. Okay, I'm sorry about this. Right, so r to the n e to the I n theta, 1 can be written as 1 times e to the I pi 0, right, or e to the 0. So r to the n is 1 and e to the I n theta is also e to the 0 is 1. Okay, right, e to the 0 is 1. Now you can find if r to the n is 1, that means that r has to be 1, right? R is a real number, it has to be 1. And if e to the I n theta is 1, then n theta can be 2 pi n. I just told you that e to the 2 pi, I just told you here that e to the n 2 pi I is unity, right? This is what we just saw here. In the same way, if we have e to the I n theta is unity, then capital N theta should be 2 pi n, where n is 0, 1, 2 and so on up to n minus 1. Okay, so let me take a new page. So z to the n is equal to 1 implies, right, there are n roots which are denoted as zn, which are nothing but r is 1 for all these things, the absolute value is 1, the theta is e to the I 2 pi small n upon capital N, where small n takes the value 0, 1, 2, so on up to capital N minus 1. What is capital N? Capital N is actually given to you. This is a fixed number, integer, let's say. Okay, that is given. Okay, so let's now understand what are these are the n roots of z to the n. Z to the n is 1, whereas n is given to you. What are the n roots? These are the n roots. Now let's say n is equal to 2. Okay, so you have 2 roots, right? So n is 0 and n is 1, z0 and z1. What is z0? You have to put small n is 0. Small n is 0 means just 1. And then z1, you have to put small n is equal to 1. Z1 is equal to e to the 2 pi I, and capital N is 2, right? Capital N is 2, small n is 1. So this becomes 2 cancels. E to the I pi is cos pi plus I sin pi. Now cos pi is nothing but minus 1. So the 2 roots of z squared is equal to 1 are plus 1 and minus 1, which is something we know from even notions of real numbers. But things become interesting when you take cube roots, right? So you have 3 roots, z0, z1, z2. You have to use the same formula as above. You will find that z0 is e to the 0 is 1, z1 is e to the 2 pi I upon 3. This is nothing but minus half plus I root 3 by 2. You should verify this. And z2 is nothing but e to the 4 pi I upon 3 is nothing but minus half minus I root 3 by 2. Okay, right. So this is how one finds nth root of unity. Now in the same way, we can now go ahead and find, we now a few minutes earlier we spoke about powers of complex numbers, say z cube, z to the 4, z to the 6, whatever, right? Now can we raise powers instead of integral powers? Can we have fractional powers? So let's first think about the simplest fractional power, that is a square root. A square root of a complex number. Suppose you say you have a complex number z, and I want to calculate z to the half. Let's call the square root of that complex number z as w. So you now know that in order to raise to some power, it's often convenient to go to the polar representation. So if z is re to the I theta, then w is z to the half is r to the half e to the I theta by 2. Okay. Now we know that okay, when theta is 0, z is equal to r and w is r to the half. Now when theta increases, suppose let's draw the complex plane, real z, imaginary z, right? When theta increases and then goes all the way down around and makes a full 2 pi, right? This is one full circle, which is 2 pi, right? When theta is equal to 2 pi, okay. Now what is w? W is r to the half, right? Now and then e to the I theta by 2, so it is I 2 pi by 2. So the 2 cancels, which is r to the half e to the I pi, but e to the I pi is just cos pi, which is minus 1, so it is minus r to the half. Okay. So in the w plane, the angle has made only half a revolution, because even though in the theta plane things have gone one full revolution, because w is z to the half and the argument of w gets divided by 2 due to the square root. So even though theta has in the z plane has gone one full circle, in the w you would have traversed only half, right? So now if theta makes a second round from 2 pi to 4 pi, then angle in the w plane will now go from pi to 2 pi. So the same point in the z plane gives rise to two different points or two different values in the w plane for z to the half. That is, you know that, okay, let me take a new sheet and draw the two planes side by side, right? So okay, so you know that this is the z plane, this is the w plane. Now if I have a complex number z, okay, and I want to take the square root, right? Now it depending on the argument of the complex number, if the argument goes from 0 to 2 pi, now the argument in the w plane would have just gotten from 0 to pi. Now I have to do a second round, okay, from 2 pi to 4 pi. But you know that in the z plane, if I add 2 pi to an angle, you are still in the same point. But in the w plane, this will now map to this lower half. This is 0 to pi, this is pi to 2 pi. So the same point in the z plane gets mapped to two different points in the w plane. Okay, so in order to cover the full w plane, you need to go around the z plane twice. Okay, so w is z to the half is a double valued function. In the sense that the same point in z will give rise to two different values of the complex number in w. Okay, so the question is, how do we know that we are, if you have the same point that is mapping to two different points, how do we know that which point is mapping to which, right? So we need two copies of the z plane placed one above the other between 0 to 2 pi for the first time and then 2 pi to 4 pi for the second time. Okay, so for a square root, which is z to the half, you need two copies of the z plane in order to arrive at the two different values of the function in the w plane. Otherwise you won't know which point is mapping to what. Such copies of the z plane are called Riemann sheets. Okay, now likewise, if I take z to the 1/3, right, z to the 1/3, then you need to go around the z plane 3 times. So first time, because w is z to the 1/3, w is r to the 1/3 e to the I theta upon 3, right? If theta goes from 0 to 2 pi in the w plane, w will go from, so this is z plane, w plane. In the w plane, the angle will go from 0 to 2 pi by 3. If theta goes from 2 pi to 4 pi, then you will get, in the w plane, it will be 2 pi by 3 to 4 pi by 3. So in the theta plane, if it goes the third round, 4 pi to 6 pi, here it will go from 4 pi by 3 to 6 pi by 3, which is now 2 pi. So in order to span the entire w plane, you need to go around the z plane 3 times, or you need to have 3 Riemann sheets. Okay, this is a very different way of very peculiar feature of complex numbers that is not there in real numbers. Okay, now how do we make w? So there are multiple values of w basically, right? That's all we are trying to say. How do we make w single valued? How to make w single valued? This is done by restricting the argument of z, which is theta, between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, now this is such functions where you are restricting the argument not to cross the 2 pi are called I mean, so that such points are called branch points, and the line which you are not allowed, the argument theta is not allowed to cross this line, because then you are again going back to the same point and you will get a different w. That is called a branch cut, and this is called, the origin is called the branch point. Okay, we will see later that the branch point is actually what is known as a singularity. We'll see this a bit later, right, as we go along in discussing complex valued functions. Okay, so as long as theta does not cross the branch point in the z plane, or sorry, the branch cut in the z plane, w will be single valued. So that is called the principal branch of z to the half. But z to the half, it's double valued, but we are restricting ourselves to one particular value by restricting ourselves to by preventing ourselves from crossing the branch cut in the z plane. Okay, now let's find out cube root of 8. Okay, now z is 8. You want to write z as r e to the I theta. So z is 8 e to the I n pi. N is 0, 1, 2, n. Okay, let me back up a little bit here, where, see, I want 8 is nothing but, you can write 8 as 8 to the e to the I 2 pi I, or e to the I 4 pi I, and so on. So I want to write e to the I n pi I. So n cannot be 1, 0, 1, 2. It should be 0, 2, 4, 6, and so on, right? You can also write, you could have written e to the I 2 m pi I, where m would have taken 0, 1, 2, but I am calling 2m as n, so n will take 0, 2, 4, 6, and so on, right? Just a notation. Now z to the 1/3 is nothing but 8 to the 1/3 e to the I n pi by 3, because if I raise it to the 1/3, you will get n pi by 3, right? Now there are multiple solutions. So what is z to the 1/3? It is e to the you can write this as 8, n is 0, so it's 8 to the 1/3 times e to the 0. This is also 8 to the 1/3 times e to the I 2 pi by 3. Okay, now you also have 4 pi by 3, right? 8 to the 1/3 e to the I 4 pi by 3, and then 8 to the 1/3 e to the I 6 pi by 3. But what is 6 pi by 3? It's e to the I 2 pi. E to the 2 pi I is 1. You go back to the original one, this. Okay, so you'll just have distinct roots for 0, 2, and 4, and from 6 onwards it will get repeated. Okay, so from 6 onwards, this is nothing but 8 to the 1/3 alone. Okay, now instead of 2 pi by 3, I can also write it as 8 to the 1/3 times e to the I 8 pi by 3, because e to the I 8 pi by 3 is e to the I 6 pi by 3 times e to the I 2 pi by 3. But what is e to the I 6 pi by 3? It is 1, because it is e to the 2 pi I. This is 1. So you have only 3 roots, because all the other roots will go back to the, so if you take the argument to higher values, these will go back to the same roots. Okay, okay, so there are only 3 roots for 8 to the 1 by 3, and not anymore. So 8 to the 1 by 3 is 2 e to the I 2 pi by 3 and 2 e to the I 4 pi by 3. There are only 3 roots. All the other values of n will give rise to the same roots again. Once again, they'll get repeated, so you're not getting any new information. Okay, what is this? This is 2 times minus 1 by root 2 plus I root 3 by 2. This is nothing but minus So if I cancel root 2's and so on, I'll get this is minus 1 plus I root 3, and this will be minus 1 minus I root 3. Okay, so these are the cube roots of 8. So this is how one calculates cube roots or powers of even if you want to find out a cube root of a real number, right, like 8, in order to, you have to generalize it to the notion of a complex number. So I'll stop here in this module, and then I'll continue again from the next module.